They always say that money changes everything. For a long time, I thought that was just a cliche, something people printed on coffee mugs to make themselves feel better about being broke. But I was wrong. A massive amount of money doesn't magically change your personality. What it actually does is act like a giant blinding spotlight. It illuminates every single crack, every lie, and every toxic shadow in your life that you've been pretending not to see. My name is Clara. I am 38 years old, and for 11 years I was a prisoner in a cage with the door left wide open. From the outside, my marriage to David looked like an absolute dream. We lived in a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a quiet, upscale neighborhood in Seattle. We had 2 nice cars, a perfectly manicured lawn, and a beautiful 9-year-old daughter named Lily. If you saw us at a neighborhood barbecue or a holiday party, you would think we were the poster family for suburban perfection. I did everything I was supposed to do. I cooked his meals, managed the household, did freelance bookkeeping from my kitchen island, and kept everything running smoothly. But behind closed doors, there was a suffocating reality that no one else saw. David completely, utterly controlled the finances. Now, I need to be clear. David wasn't physically violent, he never raised his voice, and he never threw things. Because of that, it took me a very long time to realize that what I was experiencing was a deeply insidious form of abuse. Financial control doesn't always scream at you. Sometimes it speaks in a calm, reasonable voice while reviewing a bank statement. Every Sunday night, David would sit at the dining table with his laptop and comb through our joint checking account. If he saw a $5 charge from a coffee shop because I met a friend, he would interrogate me about why I didn't just make coffee at home. If I bought Lily a small toy, he wanted a full breakdown of the cost. He had an entire set of unspoken rules that I was forced to live by. No expensive haircuts, no credit cards in my own name, and absolutely under no circumstances was I allowed to buy lottery tickets. David loved to call the lottery a tax on stupid people who can't do basic math. He would say it with this condescending little smirk, making sure I knew exactly how much smarter he was than everyone else. I learned to just nod and stay quiet. But deep down, I was always fascinated by those tickets. Not because I greedily wanted to be a billionaire, but because a lottery ticket represented a door. It represented the impossible idea that, in a single second, your entire life could change. When someone else completely designs and dictates your reality, a piece of paper with numbers on it feels like a gasp of fresh air. Then came the weekend of his corporate conference in Chicago. He packed his bags on a Thursday evening, kissed my cheek, reminded me not to run the air conditioning too high while he was gone, and drove off to the airport. I stood in the doorway, listening to his car engine fade away, feeling an immense, heavy weight lift off my chest. The next afternoon, I dropped Lily off at a friend's house for a sleepover. On the way home, I stopped at a small, rundown gas station on Pine Ridge Road to fill up my tank. When I went inside to pay, I saw the Mega Millions Jackpot sign flashing in bright neon red. I stood there for a full minute, my heart pounding over something so incredibly silly. "1 ticket, please," I told the cashier. I paid $2 in cash from a small tip I had earned doing some extra accounting work. That was it. No cinematic music, no feeling of destiny. Just a tiny secret act of rebellion against my controlling husband. I folded the ticket, hid it in the zipper pocket of my old knitting bag, a place David would never ever look, and completely forgot about it. Pause. Until Sunday morning. I was sitting alone at the kitchen counter drinking coffee, scrolling through the news on my phone. An article popped up saying the winning ticket had been sold in my exact county. My stomach did a weird flip. I put my mug down, walked over to my knitting bag, and pulled out the crumpled piece of paper. I pulled up the winning numbers on my screen. 12, 24, 24, 38, 45, 45, 61. Mega Ball 14. I stopped breathing. I literally forgot how to pull air into my lungs. I checked it again and again and again. I checked the date. I checked the state website. I had all 6 numbers. I had just won $85 million. For the first 10 minutes, I just sat on the kitchen floor staring at the wall. My husband, the man who spent 11 years telling me I was financially irresponsible and foolish, was in Chicago, and I was sitting in our kitchen holding a piece of paper worth a fortune. But you know what the craziest part was? My first emotion wasn't joy. It was sheer paralyzing terror. Because my brain had been trained for a decade to anticipate David's reactions, I instantly knew exactly how this would play out. He would be shocked for about 10 seconds. Then he would take the ticket from my hands. He would call his financial advisors. He would set up the accounts, he would take absolute control of every single penny, and my cage would just turn from iron to gold. I would still be the woman asking for permission to buy a sweater, just with an $85 million balance in an account I wasn't allowed to access. I didn't tell a soul. I put the ticket back in my bag and spent the rest of the day in a daze. That night, after I put Lily to bed, I went into our master bedroom. David had left his old backup iPad on his nightstand. It was synced to his phone messages. It buzzed. I don't know what made me look. Maybe it was the adrenaline from the ticket. But I walked over and tapped the screen. It was a message from a contact saved only as Rachel Fashions. The message said, "Can't wait to see you in the hotel room tonight. Missed you." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Honestly, I just felt a profound, chilling clarity. A surprised wife cries. A wife who realizes her marriage has been dead for years just starts planning. I stayed up until 4 a.m. I researched marital property laws in our state. I looked up lottery anonymity rules. I learned that winnings acquired during a marriage are generally considered joint marital assets, which meant David would legally be entitled to half, if not more, depending on how aggressive his lawyers were. But I also read about legal structures, trusts, and the vital importance of tracing the origin of the funds used to buy the ticket. The next morning, while Lily was at school, I drove 3 towns over and walked into the office of a highly recommended, absolutely ruthless wealth management attorney named Sarah. She was in her 60s, sharp as a tack, and didn't waste time. I slid the ticket across her desk and told her everything. The control, the cheating, the cash I used. Sarah looked at me and said, "First, do not sign this ticket yet. Second, we need to prove exactly where the $2 came from." Because I did freelance bookkeeping, I had a separate, tiny credit union account that David rarely bothered to check because the balances were so low. I had withdrawn a $20 bill from that exact account 2 days before buying the ticket. Sarah immediately set to work. She created a blind trust, appropriately named the Pine Ridge Trust. We structured it so that the trust claimed the prize, completely shielding my identity from the public. After taxes, the lump sum payout was $48 million. $48 million sitting in an account that David didn't even know existed. But the most valuable thing wasn't the money. It was the fact that for the first time in my adult life, I had absolute power. David came back from his trip. He walked in, kissed my forehead, and complained about the airline food. I smiled, served him dinner, and watched him text his mistress under the table. I played the part of the obedient, quiet wife for 3 more agonizing weeks while Sarah finalized the asset protection and filed the paperwork. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, while David was at his office, he was served with divorce papers. My phone started ringing off the hook 5 minutes later. I didn't answer. I packed a bag for Lily and me, left my wedding ring on his precious laptop, and drove to a short-term rental apartment I had already paid for. When we finally met in mediation, David was furious. His mask had completely slipped. He slammed his hands on the table and accused me of being delusional, claiming I would be destitute without him. He told me I would end up crawling back to him when I realized I couldn't survive on my own. I just sat there looking at him, feeling absolutely nothing but pity. Then, the discovery phase of the divorce started. David's lawyers demanded a full audit of my finances, fully expecting to find a few $1,000s. Instead, they hit a legal brick wall built around a $48 million trust. When David found out I had won the lottery, he absolutely lost his mind. He tried to sue me for the entire amount, claiming I had maliciously hidden marital assets. We went to court. His lawyer, a smug guy in a gray suit, argued that the ticket was bought with marital funds and therefore belonged to the household. But my lawyer, Sarah, was a shark. She didn't just present the bank statements proving the ticket was bought from my separate non-commingled freelance account. She presented a meticulously documented history of his financial abuse. She brought printed spreadsheets of the budgets he forced on me, the emails where he berated me for buying groceries he deemed too expensive, and the absolute nail in the coffin, the hotel receipts and text messages proving his affair with Rachel. Sarah looked at the judge and stated, "Your Honor, my client didn't hide marital assets. She protected her personal property from a financially abusive, adulterous spouse who maintained complete and total dictatorial control over the marital estate." The judge's ruling was devastating for David. Because I had used exclusively my own separately maintained funds to buy the ticket, and because of his documented financial misconduct and infidelity, the judge ruled that the Pine Ridge Trust was my sole and separate property. The $48 million was mine. David got exactly half of the house, his retirement account, and his car. Nothing more. I didn't go out and buy a fleet of sports cars or a 20-bedroom mansion. That's what people who want to show off do. I bought a beautiful, modest, historic home in a quiet neighborhood. It has a wraparound porch and a big oak tree in the back where I hung the tire swing for Lily. I expanded my bookkeeping business, hired a small staff, and started offering free financial literacy consulting to women trying to escape abusive marriages. David's life, on the other hand, slowly unraveled. Without me to manage his life and tolerate his arrogance, his mistress eventually left him. He lives in a sterile, overpriced condo downtown, desperately trying to maintain the illusion that he is still the smartest guy in the room. The universe works in strange ways. The $2 I spent on that ticket didn't just buy me a fortune. It bought me my voice, my dignity, and my freedom. And honestly, watching the man who treated me like an incompetent child realize he was completely powerless against me, well, that was just the jackpot on top. What would you guys have done? Would you have told your partner about the ticket, or would you have kept it a secret like I did? Let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories just like this one.